Hello, my dear friend. We all experience problems in this life. We may experience problems that will bother us and maybe cause us to move away from life for a little while, but knowing when these problems disrupt our psychology is very important in order to solve that problem and eliminate that psychological disorder. In this video, I want to tell you about some signs that show that our psychology is broken. Fundamentally, we all need to love and value ourselves at least a little bit. If the person does not love himself or hates himself, and this is not a temporary situation, I am not talking about the declines you experience during the day, or sometimes you may spend a week in a low mood and your relationship with yourself may not be very good. I'm talking about a longer-term perception. If you have been hating yourself for a very long time, feeling disgusted with yourself in some way, or even feeling worthless, this may be a sign that you have a psychological problem. We expect people with a healthy mood to develop solutions or struggle against the problems they experience. But if a person has a psychological problem, the following situation arises. There is a problem. Sometimes, although the solution to this problem is easy, these people somehow avoid facing this solution and develop avoidance methods. Some avoidance methods are very innocent. The person sleeps at every opportunity. Somehow he escapes from it. In some cases, when he feels bad or someone treats him badly, he gives in to eating instead of confronting them. What do we call this emotional eating? Obesity is very common in such people. Sometimes there are more severe methods of avoidance. What happens is that instead of confronting the problem the person is experiencing, he may give himself to alcohol or drugs. As long as he uses that drug, he will not remember that problem, and you will see what the person has done in such a period of time. He has numbed himself with alcohol, he has drugged himself with drugs. It numbed him. In that process, he avoided the problem. What will happen when he gets sober? That problem will remain as it is. This time he will start using more drugs and more alcohol. Sometimes a person can satisfy himself with shopping. Sometimes he may choose to escape from his own problems by being an excessive workaholic. These are some of the signs. The relationships we establish with other people are also one of the most important things in understanding our mental health. For example, I always ask questions to my clients. Do you have friends? How is your relationship with your family? If you are having problems with all the people around you, if you somehow quarrel with everyone, if you are angry with everyone, or if you have difficulty establishing relationships with these people, if you are all alone, if you have difficulty finding or remembering even one person around you, this may indicate that you have a problem, a psychological problem. Sometimes we used to be on good terms with people. Then we experience some things. We worry about some issues. We develop an obsession in some way, or we may be suffering from an anxiety disorder. In such a case, if our relationships with the people around us deteriorate along with the symptoms we experience, if there may be decreases in our school life, work life, and success, if we have concentration problems, and if this continues for a long time rather than 1 to 2 days, and if it continues to increase, this may indicate that we have a problem. People with a healthy mood create a balance between their desires and fears in life. We all have fears about life. We all have parts of ourselves that we are shy about. But if a person has psychological problems, he has become a prisoner of his fears. He has a lot of expectations about life, but he has serious trouble even taking a step. Therefore, that fear is surrounded by barbed wire, and the person becomes very unhappy because he cannot do what he wants. Since he cannot overcome that fear, he remains closed in that vicious circle, and happiness, peace, and good feelings remain seriously distant from the person. If you are in this situation, you have become a slave to your fears, and this may indicate that you have a psychological problem. One of the most important things that a person should pay attention to when evaluating his or her own mental health is the addictions he or she experiences. Essentially, what we call addiction is, it is our insistence on keeping something with us, in our lives, even though it harms us. It's not just drugs or alcohol. Sometimes there may be a work environment that harms us, sometimes there may be people who harm us. We may even have a relationship that harms us. Look around you. There are many people who keep them in their lives because they are addicted to those people, even though they cause serious and incredible harm to them. What happens when this happens? Not being able to get rid of this addiction will take his psychology to the bottom. It will cause him to live at a lower level, And even if he has a normal psychology, his psychological state and mood will deteriorate even more because he is with such a troubled person. Good or bad things can happen to any of us in life. When bad things happen, we get sad, devastated, and therefore we are affected by this negative thing for a while. But people with a healthy mood can continue their lives even if they do not forget those things, thanks to their ability to adapt after a while. This could be a loss, a bankruptcy, or a separation. What happens next? The person says, "Yes, I miss him." Somehow it comes to the point that I still continue to suffer a little, but life goes on. But if a person is experiencing a psychological problem, or if the situation he is experiencing has turned into a psychological problem because of what he has experienced, he cannot use his ability to adapt even after years have passed. Next thing you know, after a 1-month relationship, he suffers for 5 years, or what he does is he shuts himself in because of the loss he experienced. He chooses not to work again due to bankruptcy. What happened? He didn't adapt. He became a prisoner of his fears. This may be a sign that you are experiencing a psychological problem. We all have routines in life: our appetite pattern, our sleep pattern, our relationship with the people around us. To this day, people around us more or less say this, or we can say it for ourselves. Behan has such an appetite, she eats less and more. Behan goes to bed at this time and gets up at that time. Behan's friends are as follows. See you at this time. Behan is a social person. Behan is a person who likes to spend more time by herself. That is, we all have familiar characteristics and routines, but sometimes when our psychology is disturbed, these routines become confused. A person with little appetite begins to overeat. A person who normally has a normal appetite loses his appetite and soon experiences serious weight loss problems. A person who is insomniac, a person who sleeps little, may not want to get out of bed, or a person who sleeps a lot may stay sleepless until the morning because of fighting and thinking about the bed when he gets into bed. While we have a relationship with the people around us, we cut off our relationship with them and close ourselves at home. Or somehow, we start having absurd relationships, even though we don't normally have such relationships. What happens if our normal line changes in the opposite direction in a short time? This can be one of the signs that our psychology is deteriorating. Another sign that shows that you are having a psychological problem is if, when you observe the people around you, you get the following feeling. Oh, how happy are these people? Where do they find things to make them happy? Why am I living this way? Why does this life seem so difficult to me? If you feel like you are in such a dark box and it seems like all other people are making you so happy, we can think that there is a problem here too. Sometimes we may be making a big deal about a tiny thing that other people don't care about that much. This may be a fear of getting sick, or a fear of contamination. Or it may be a state of thinking that something might happen to us. In such a situation, even the people who know and love us say, "You are exaggerating, Behan. There is nothing to make such a big deal about." Even though people who do not know each other say this, and this is confirmed by people who do not know each other, if you persistently worry seriously about that seemingly unimportant thing, and if this anxiety affects your life, your sleep, your relationships, this may also be a sign of a serious psychological problem. Relationships are one of the things that make us better. Relationships are one of the things that make us bad. If the relationship we live in is a difficult one, if it requires us to be on guard at all times, if we are constantly arguing and in tension, the person, on the other hand, gets used to this relationship. It seems like this is normal. He feels like he's not suffering much mentally, but just because you feel like you're not suffering mentally doesn't mean you're not damaged mentally and physically. In such a situation, if you are in a tense relationship and this tension never ends, and there is always an issue that will cause trouble, this may have disrupted your psychology without you realizing it. In such a case, it needs to be considered. The feedback about us from the people around us is really valuable, but who gives this feedback is very important. We should not take the feedback given by a very narcissistic person who tries to humiliate or bury us very seriously. These people may be saying things like, "Oh, you're psychologically unstable, you should go to a psychologist," to make us feel worse, but beforehand, we were told by people whose opinions, common sense, and goodwill we trusted, "Oh, should you get help, Behan? You're not the same as before, some things are not the same." If there is feedback such as, "I see you making it bigger, I see you unhappy, I see you nervous," The person may not feel it himself, or it may seem normal. In such cases, we need to pay attention to the feedback those people give us. If you experience most of the things I have mentioned together, and if these symptoms persist for a long time, I am not talking about things that come and go during the day, and do not go away, or even continue to increase, you may be experiencing a psychological problem. Most people actually think that they can solve psychological problems on their own, but if you experience mild problems, maybe they are very mild, it is generally not possible to reach the solution point without help for medium and severe problems. People will call me crazy. What will be the solution? However, many psychological problems can be treated with very good results, in some cases with the help of medication, in some cases with psychotherapy, and sometimes by combining the two. I also want to say this in this video. There is a serious prejudice about drugs. Yes, this prejudice did not occur on its own. This perception has arisen because antidepressants were prescribed in every situation by doctors who did not take their job seriously or did not like it. But I have to say this clearly, because of this perception, people know how to use medication even when necessary for some problems. Unfortunately, in some cases, it is not possible to treat some psychological problems without medication, but for many psychological problems, the best solution is to use both medication and psychotherapy. We should never forget this. Medication alone or therapy alone can sometimes be ineffective. When we use both together, we can get very good results. Let's say you are experiencing these symptoms. What will you do? Where will you start? I recommend that you see a psychiatric examination first. I recommend you get such help. When you go to a conscious doctor or psychiatrist, he will guide you about therapy and medication. You have to enter this path somehow. Otherwise, people's lives pass, their years pass. You don't have to live in such pain and darkness. Thank you for listening to me, beautiful person. If you like this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe if you are not subscribed to my channel. Be very good to yourself. See you soon.